Good evening, everyone. I welcome all of you, including our today's speaker and the joint members, those who are here. This is Veer Maheshwar Charitable Trust Latur MS India, organizing daily international webinar series. And in this series, we are inviting the renowned speakers from India and abroad. For the information of the participants and speakers, I would like to say that this series is running from last 5 years, and this series is recognized as a Asia Book of Record, India Book of Record, International Book of Records because of the daily organization of the maximum webinars. Especially the women resource persons are invited, mostly women resource persons. So the webinar series is running under the Women Empowerment series. I welcome today's speaker, Dr. Courtney Beck, ma'am. Courtney Beck, ma'am, who is PhD MBA, adjunct professor at Florida State University and founder of Plenty of Positivity. And her topic is preparing students for life beyond the classroom. This topic is most related to us because we are mostly teachers. When I invited her to deliver a talk, she selected the topic because we are all the teachers. And she's Plenty of Positivity is dedicated to building a positive community of better tomorrow. She hosts a podcast where discussions compass life, short and career. She is also co-founder of Energized Thinking. She is former elite level gymnast who competed at the University of Florida, where become a NCAA All-American and was a member of 2 SEC championship team titles. We congratulate you, ma'am. She also has corporate sales experience. In addition, she's founded the Women in Sports Association at Florida State University, where her passion of helping young women would become a reality. She earned a PhD degree in short management and an MBA from Florida State University, a master's degree in communication from the University of Central Florida, and bachelor degree in advertising from the University of Florida. So, with a great CV, we welcome you, ma'am, and eager to listen your speech because you are invited around the globe on various platforms, educational and others. Thank you and welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction, Dr. BETKAR. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I know people are on different time zones, and so I'm just so grateful for all of us to be gathered here today to speak about a very important topic. As Dr. BETKAR had mentioned, I understand the majority of the audience is teachers and professors. And so how we prepare students for life beyond the classroom is certainly becoming a topic of discussion that is at the forefront because, as we know, technology and technology advancements are certainly coming within different industries at a very rapid pace. And so therefore, the preparation for these students, particularly even at the university level or even earlier at the high school level. I'm out of the United States. And so I do believe that early preparation is certainly something that could really help these students excel later on as they do graduate from the university and, of course, with their bachelor's degree and entering into their professional careers. And so I did want to start off. Dr. BETKAR had provided such a lovely introduction. I'm so grateful for that introduction. And I did want to add that particularly when I was going through my academic career that would entail 4 degrees, I certainly had time to reflect upon the education system at large. And I was also able, through my sales experience within the corporate environment, to allow me to kind of compare and contrast of different skill sets that certainly prepared me for the sales world, if you will, more of that corporate environment, as well as maybe some skills that I feel I could have maybe been better prepared for my professional career as I left the university system. So the topic of discussion of preparing students for life after the classroom really is one that I have lived out through my own experience, and I'm very, very passionate about it, as I am also an adjunct professor at Florida State University currently. As Dr. BETKAR had mentioned, with the 2 advanced degrees, a master's in communication and an MBA, as well as my PhD in sport management, has really allowed me to have that broad scope of education within different disciplines. And I think that's very important today, is that not necessarily gaining the degrees or the titles, but the continued learning that happens amongst different industries, amongst different sectors, for that student to be able to maintain a certain level of knowledge that, of course, as I had mentioned before, with technology really rapidly advancing in these industries, that they are able to maintain that knowledge to at least help them as they enter into that environment, whatever industry or discipline that may be, but then also to allow them to excel because they're continuing to learn on their own. They have that self-motivation to continue learning. And so I have several different topics that I'm going to jump into from various perspectives. But first, I'll start from the very beginning when I was a student, which wasn't quite frankly that long ago. But as I had mentioned, in my sales career, I was in my mid-20s at that time, and sales really taught me the value of building relationships. Building relationships with people, understanding the value of emotional intelligence, how we emotionally regulate in different environments, how we become very self-aware of how we are in that environment. And so as I was able to reflect, while the education system, as I was going through my undergraduate degree to get an advertising degree for my undergraduate degree, it certainly taught me those technical skills that I needed. However, the emotional intelligence, the ability, as I mentioned, to emotionally regulate, those were skills that I really learned out of experience of being in that particular sector, that I would take on with me, but that I would also notice that perhaps that could even help a student if those skills were even learned that much quicker, that much at an earlier age, if you will. As I would go through the academic system, and I was at the time currently in my PhD program with certain lived experience outside of academia, I started to reflect on what my life was in, like what was exactly happening to me during my undergraduate years. I was very focused on academia, of course, all my academic courses, but then also athletics took a large part of my time. And so that left me with only very small amounts of time during a week to maybe participate in other clubs or activities that would help me for life after sport and life after the classroom. And so when I was in my PhD program, I began to see that there was not a group, specifically within sport, that would really help a young woman gain confidence in herself, to allow her to even have a sense of direction at a younger age. And most importantly, a true support system and community that she could always be part of as she moves forward after she graduates. And so I created, as Dr. BETKAR had mentioned, Women in Sport Association at Florida State University. It's a student-led organization. I had initially pitched it to the faculty, the chair of the department, and there was certainly that need for that community. And it is still going on to this day. Began that process in 2021. And so I think it's a good, as I reflect back, it was a good lesson even on my behalf that you're always looking to improve in some capacity the younger generations and their lives as they climb the ranks. And so it's also acknowledging what you maybe wish you had during that time and creating it. That was during my PhD program, which I'm sure many of you could relate how it is a very busy time. However, I did see that there was a need to help this younger generation. So in addition, my dissertation in my PhD program was specifically focused on female student athletes, but the title of the dissertation was Female Student Athlete Leadership, Mentorship, and the Transition to the Post-Collegiate Labor Force. So once again, understanding how to develop those leadership skills in students at that undergraduate level, understanding the mentorship opportunities. Are there mentorship opportunities or are there not? And then how could we best prepare students as they open up their lens to that next chapter of their life as they do graduate? And what was really interesting in some of the findings was simply the need for mentorship. There was 5 main themes, and mentorship being one of them. How important it could be, even with students that are maybe 2 to 5 years older than that undergraduate student, but allowing them to see those entry-level jobs. What are they like? What type of opportunities do they wish they had maybe got involved in at the undergraduate level? And being able to kind of understand just storytelling. We could learn so many inspirational, just perspectives, if you will, to apply to our own life. When we listen to another story, we could become encouraged to take action at a younger age. Student development, just how the student is developing as that personal growth, even as they move forward. Number 3 was communication skills. I know that those listening understand the importance of communication skills, and I will certainly dive into that particular topic in a bit during this discussion. The need for community. How important today it is that we gather around together and that we feel that sense of support system, that eye contact, the demonstration that one individual cares about what the other individual is speaking about. Maybe they're going through challenging times. Maybe in this case, young women are trying to seek out direction in their life, a sense of meaning where they maybe fit in, maybe where they have those strengths that they could capitalize on in their careers. And then leadership skill development. That is always, of course, a skill that we could be developing to allow for that better version of ourselves each and every day as we continue moving forward into the future. And another suggestion that really did come out of this dissertation was the need for groups for panel discussions. And so as far as preparation for students with life, after the classroom, this could even pertain to, even from my own experience, back in high school. I wish that perhaps even if you had 5 individuals come for, say, a career day, and they're on a panel and they just simply discuss about what their job title is, how maybe it has changed within the past 2 years or 3 years, and where they started. Did they actually start where they currently are at, say, 5 years down the road? And so it educates a student early on to start thinking very proactively as to how, maybe what are their strengths? Do they align with the individual speaking and what their job description is? What are maybe their weaknesses that as they move forward, because they're very young, of course, what are their weaknesses that they could at least focus on to develop, to turn those weaknesses into strengths? And so as we gather here today, I believe that career exploration beginning that much earlier. So not even at the collegiate level, but perhaps at the high school level, opening up their minds and allowing them to expand their lens as to the types of different jobs within certain sectors that they think that they may want to enter. It could allow them much more of a benefit once they get to the university system to capitalize on the knowledge they're obtaining within their degree program. Understanding just what encompasses in specific job descriptions within certain industries, because really a large topic of discussion is going to be moving forward, as we all know, how technology is just rapidly developing and changing different industries, as well as the need for specific job titles, as well as maybe taking away certain job titles. And so mentorship, networking opportunities for these students would really be beneficial to kind of cap off the fact that they're getting their degree, but then we're also preparing them for at least looking into the future, not providing that sense of anxiousness that I once had. Quite frankly, I was very lost out of my undergraduate degree, and being able to take away that stress, being able to take away that anxiety of what is coming next. But if you've already, of course, prepared for that next chapter as best as you can during those 4 years in the university system, you will be much, much more prepared than I certainly was. And so that's really where my passion comes from with this topic of discussion, is from my own lived experience, but then how the times are changing and how education really does need to stay up with all of that rapid change. Specifically emphasizing, as far as a professor's standpoint or just at large within the education system, but emphasizing the importance of soft skills. I have read numerous articles, and they're really speaking about how, while technical skills are certainly in need, soft skills are equally as important, if not even more important today. So we think about, of course, the collaboration efforts, the ability to think creatively, the ability to listen. And I will be honest, that has been something that certainly even up to present day, that's a skill that I really do have to work on, is understanding, being an active listener when someone else is speaking. And then empathy, how important, understanding, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, how that could really take you so far in life. The eye contact, as I mentioned, we could be distracted by different devices, notifications, distractions at large. But when you are able to focus and to be present with one, whether that's in the workplace, of course, or if it's in one's personal life, it really allows for a strong connection. And it allows you, maybe even in the workforce, to stand apart because not many people do that today. We're constantly multitasking. Critical thinking is something else. I know we could all attest to the fact with AI coming full force, of course, it has certainly already been here. But this idea of how important now critical thinking is for laying such a solid foundation for those younger generations coming up, whether that is, of course, Gen Z or even now Gen Alpha coming up. Understanding how to think critically, observing, analyzing different situations, understanding why something is happening, different perspectives, inviting those perspectives that maybe go against what you believe, but challenging that thought process is going to be so critical moving forward, and understanding the right questions to ask. That's going to be very, very valuable. So much that myself, as well as two other lovely hosts, Valerie Probsfeld and Ambrie Nadim, we have created a podcast that is focused on not only critical thinking, but also curiosity, being curious about things, taking that extra step to research a topic, taking the effort to maybe expand your knowledge in different sectors, different disciplines. We take more of a multidisciplinary approach where we invite guests who are experts in their field. That could be neuroscience, that could be psychology, that could be business, etc. But it's expanding your mindset into maybe areas that you perhaps are not an expert in. But the entrepreneurial thought process, which I will certainly get into today, is going to be very important and critical moving forward as far as understanding different pattern recognition, trends, as well as to be able to capitalize on those ideas. I had mentioned emotional intelligence, but in the workforce, being self-aware, how you come across in a professional environment, how you show up, how you present yourself, self-management, how important it is being calm under pressure when decision-making is critical. Moving forward, maybe you're making an executive decision. Do you remain calm under pressure when you're leading a team? These are the types of skills that, if in fact we start earlier, as far as educating students, maybe alongside their major, maybe they're in engineering, maybe they are in sport management, but we are developing these skills that will last them a lifetime alongside the technical skills. Social awareness, once again, going back to that empathy, having empathy for understanding different, maybe different education levels in the workforce, different generations. And that's certainly something that I'm going to dive into, is that we are seeing, which is incredible, there's 5 to 6 generations now currently in the workforce. So we could see whether it's traditionalist, that could be boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, or even Gen Alpha in there. And so you recognize, of course, with different generations comes maybe different technology use, for example, social media use. And we could also see social changes. What are different values within those generations and how they differ from maybe, say, for example, the boomer generation compared to maybe Gen Z? Okay. So I think that is a critical educational piece, understanding different generations. What makes up a generation? What makes it different? What perhaps generally speaking are the strengths of that generation and how they could capitalize on the strengths, but also educate other generations as well. And so that's where that empathy part really comes in. If we begin educating students on that sense of kindness, that maybe the way that one individual within the workplace that comes from a different generation, maybe they were educated in a different way. Maybe they did not have the technology that newer generations do have. And so I think that's a really critical part, because both share strengths. And think about that. If you are able to cater to that generation and understand how they learn, understand maybe what they do know, and capitalizing on that, the collaboration efforts could truly expand and really increase for obviously results in that particular industry or that particular discipline that could be innovative, that could move that industry forward. Another topic of discussion that I really want to dive into, and I'm going to be presenting alongside another colleague of mine soon at a conference, but this idea of the fear of failure. And I could certainly speak from experience at a very young age. My father had instilled in me, I still remember these words to this day. He's still here with us. But Court, never be afraid to fail. In sport, especially the sport of gymnastics, when you are physically falling, a lot of the times when you're learning new skills, how those are actually, that sport was teaching me life lessons that I could take forward with me into my professional career. So figuratively, of course, you may not necessarily fall within your career, but it's that idea of, if you do make a mistake, do you learn from it? Do you take those lessons and do you propel forward even that much more stronger? Or do you stop completely? And so I think this is a topic of discussions that's going to be spoken about more and more, specifically as far as the professor's standpoint or even the teacher's standpoint, is to the wording, how we word this idea, if you will, of when one makes a mistake. I like the idea of a mistake and what you learn from that mistake to redirect. So it's not necessarily utilizing that word of failure, but it's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity, especially in business, to pivot in a different direction that maybe initially you did not see, but now you have learned through experience. Particularly when we talk about the research behind this, it's very recent research in 2025 within the International Journal of Business Administration. But quote, findings reveal that Generation Z prioritizes mental health, inclusivity, and purpose-driven work environments, often accompanied by risk aversion and a preference for frequent feedback. It talks about their strengths as far as opportunities for innovation and cultural transformation, but then also presenting challenges such as heightened turnover rates and dependence on validation. And so I really emphasize risk aversion and how important this is for the development, of course, as we know, for innovation amongst various countries, the need for the entrepreneurial mindset to really push forward corporations and businesses. That's what's going to be very valuable moving forward, is that entrepreneurial mindset that really allows the student to propel in life after the classroom. In addition, I want to mention two other studies, but one particularly that came out of Forbes, but it speaks about a particular polling group. So it's a polling group, Barna, published a study in October of 2024 showing that 38% of Gen Z survey respondents said that they are constantly afraid to fail, a higher percentage than any other age demographic. And so this really does speak volumes as far as how we as professors, as teachers, could really focus on our wording of how we present perspectives on perceived failure, but more so learning from those mistakes. And last but certainly not least, coming out of the International Journal of Evaluation and Research and Education states that, quote, in conclusion, students are more likely to be afraid to fail when they believe that there is a social standard of perfection that they have to follow. So if we just look at large in our societies, how social media, there is obviously more of that emphasis on the perfection, the perfect photo, the perfect photo shoot, the perfect experience, but that we begin to educate earlier on the reality and how what really pushes an individual forward in their career is the ability to continually move forward. If you succeed, reassess, think about what made you succeed. But then also, if you make a mistake, you're pushing forward. You're getting that much closer to your goals. And so it really is, it's that like mindset shift that you will allow them through your words, through how you word or allow them to perceive this fear, this perceived fear of failure. How we perhaps grade papers. Once again, it really comes down to the wording, but that we're emphasizing what did they do positive in this assignment? And I'm a firm believer of still providing a letter grade, a particular numerical value, because in the real world, as we know, it is not perfection all the time. Sure, we will succeed at times, but it's also important to mirror what that professional landscape truly embodies. Understanding if we do make a mistake, how do we get back up and continue driving forward? Particularly the entrepreneurial mindset. I know I've mentioned this, but having more opportunity, whether it's electives at the university level, but for students to open up their minds to what entrepreneurship is, laying a solid foundation down for those business skills that really have such a widespread application as they move forward. What happens if you do get laid off from your position? You have the opportunity to create your own destiny, start your own business. There's not an opportunity that has been provided to you, you create one. And I think that's a really powerful lesson, the sense of resilience that we could instill in students earlier on. Thinking creatively, as we know what drives innovation forward is creativity, is that critical thinking, asking those questions, challenging that status quo. That's what really drives businesses forward, let alone if you start your own business, you could create a certain niche that you're good at, that you have a strength at, that maybe was not created before for you to even explore, but you have the power to do so. Entrepreneurship is very powerful when it comes to the real world application. So when we utilize the education system, what you're learning in it, and then you apply to have that industry knowledge, to entail that industry knowledge. So I currently teach an entrepreneurship class more specialized within sport. But for example, they develop an idea, a product or a service. They create a business plan. This is heavily applicable to when they move forward. Should they want to pursue this idea, they already have that head start. It is applicable. And why is this relevant? As we know, like I said, innovation is driving various industries forward and will always, for that matter, and continue to do so into the future. So allowing for a student to have that career exploration, to understand their creative side that maybe they don't even know they had. And that was in my sense. I did not view myself through a creative lens or creative skills that I possessed at that early age. But perhaps if I did have that professor that really encouraged me to utilize my creativity, maybe my path as far as career would have altered. Maybe I would have become an entrepreneur earlier on. Who knows? But it's the point that they are at least exposing themselves to this entrepreneurial process, this thought process that could really help them succeed in life as well. Another topic of discussion that is certainly not new, as we all know, but this concept of metacognition. So certainly has been around since even ancient philosophy, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle even. But John Flavel in the 70s really coined that term and moved it forward as far as a topic of critical discussion. So as we know, thinking about your thinking, very simplistically put, but these are the basics that by allowing students to have that solid foundation, regardless of what they study within the university system, how that's really going to be important and to allow them to become more efficient as they move forward. So as we know, planning, what types of strategies help you learn, help you move the ball forward in whatever career that you're choosing? How do you study if you're a student currently in school? How do you study? How do you learn maybe quicker? Are you a visual learner? Does it take you maybe some time to have to read again and again? And that really comes into that monitoring era, if you will, but that monitoring of assessing how you're learning. I know for me, I always have to reread things. That is something that I knew from the beginning. I literally learned about my thinking and how I learn, and how that was something that I knew I had to give myself extra time. And then ultimately evaluation, understanding what actually worked. The strategy that I implemented in my learning, did that allow for me to be successful in whatever the case was as far as that subject matter? And how does this apply? Well, moving forward, it's going to allow the student to guide them and to improve their critical thinking of not only how am I learning to become more resilient, to understand that I have to look at the large picture in order to draw conclusive findings. I have to observe. I have to take the time to analyze. I have to lay a solid foundation of what helps me learn, not the person sitting next to me, not the competition in business, but what is going to allow me to elevate myself, to instill myself with a certain level of education needed to succeed. Lifelong learning. You know, I tell my students, especially at the undergraduate level, majority within my class are juniors, seniors as well. But even if they go on after their undergraduate degree and decide that they do not want to return to a master's degree or obviously continue their education formally, always continue to learn. Because more and more, as we all know, and I mentioned it, but technology is rapidly changing. There are perhaps job descriptions that do not even exist yet that will be created. And with that rapid change, if the student is able to stay up with that change by simply having that self-motivation to learn, instilling that earlier on, and understanding, this is another perspective that I even take in my class, is the applicability. The fact that when you do that assignment in class and you are getting that grade, it is not just to check the box off. As I mentioned, that business plan, that's going to take you, that could drive you into the future and literally ignite a career path that you never intended. And so you position a perspective of education through a different lens. It's not about just checking the box off for an elective to get your degree. It's not necessarily about the titles, but what is going to be moving forward. So we look at a title like it's static. If we do not continue our education, the title does not really hold the value it once did. And so I think that's another perception, I think, as far as allowing the student to be educated as to how they could drive themselves forward, expanding their knowledge, as I mentioned with our podcast, a multidisciplinary approach. You do not have to be an expert in every single topic, but are you understanding what's going on in the world around you? Are you understanding certain trends? Maybe what are consumers interested in? What are you interested in? And I think that really does allow for that entrepreneurial mindset that if you do decide to go that direction, you already have a basis, a foundation laid for understanding the marketplace and the trends that have happened maybe the past 5 years, the past 10 years. In addition to the lifelong learning, I have created a book club called Courtney's Corner. I'm heavily into more what I would call social entrepreneurship on LinkedIn, on Instagram, but I highlight one book per month. I do read a lot, though, behind the scenes for podcast guests. Maybe they have books, but it's the point that lifelong learning is critical and it's becoming more and more valuable. And so I think that's another opportunity for professors to either get involved with a book club that they know, or maybe to even start one, and to encourage their students that lifelong learning will set them up for success in life. Professional proficiency and financial literacy. So when we look at financial literacy and being proficient, I'm talking basic. I'm not talking if you come out of a business degree and you have a solid foundation of understanding finance, accounting. But I know when I came out, I did not have a business major, but I came home and my father educated me on good credit, on not so great credit, how to build, what is a credit score? How to write a check. I know maybe some of us don't even utilize checks anymore, but still some do. How do you write a check? And so these are basic skill sets that could really help the student, like I said, regardless of what they are majoring in at the university level, but expanding their mindset on how to become successful, not only in the workplace, but even in life. And then I round it out with this idea of even education, if this is a class, for example, but understanding professional relationships and even maybe understanding if it's a speaker who specifically has an expertise in it, but understanding how what I call like life, career, and maybe your personal life, harmony. Okay, a lot of people would call it work-life balance. I truly believe, especially for those driven students, that it really comes down to that harmony, that ability to understand that maybe sometimes career, it may be an 80-20, for example. Other days you're really focused on that family environment. And like I said, people have a multitude of different perspectives on this, and I certainly invite them in. But I do feel it's important that if we just at least educate how we build and continue and maintain professional relationships for these students, how we maintain those personal relationships, what happens in life if tragedy occurs? How do you become resilient to rise up even stronger? To still be able to move your life forward, especially if you have a family that you have to go to work and something tragically happened. How do you cope with those emotions? And so all of these different topics of discussions came upon, honestly, from lived experience, things that I wish someone had educated me on, or I at least had to seek out after I had graduated. So the earlier that we can prepare students, especially with technological advancements, with those jobs that maybe we are currently preparing students for, but may not even exist, who knows, in 1 to 5 years, how we allow them those skill sets, adaptability, resilience, that is what's going to take them far, not only within the education system, but certainly life after the classroom. So thank you so much for listening to just this topic and how passionate I am about this topic. And I really do. I want to open it up to any questions that you all may have, as well as even comments. I'm always open to learning. And I think that's another critical thing, is being open to learn, that we can never stop learning. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor. It was great to listen to you. Deep study on the students, their skills, their personal life, and progress of the students, how it can be happen through the teachers in each situation. It was a research and the experience of you behind that. Nice and great to listen you. Now, I request all the participants can unmute and they can discuss with today's speaker. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Swaran Shuklaji, please welcome.
Good evening, Dr. BETKAR, sir, and I think good morning to you, ma'am. A wonderful presentation you have made, and definitely, there are so many things to learn apart from the class. So learning beyond the class, a wonderful explanation you had given. My 2-3 points of discussions are there. Like first thing, at least in India, the students are so busy. They are having their classes, they are having their tuitions, and they are very busy. And usually they don't get much time, to explore the world and to go to their friends and to share some experiences, because learning, is from our friends also. So that is one of the critical question, how we can take out the time, and is there any fault in education system, or we are just running behind the grades and percentages? That is one of the very important, crucial and critical question. As you said, we should ask critical questions. So this is one of the very important question. And second question is, when we start thinking critically and we ask questions critically, nowadays, you'll find we are talking about Gen Zs, that they are, they are not in that mood of going to that depth and meditating on the subjects. They collect superficial knowledge from the social medias and televisions. And as everyone knows that televisions and social medias, they are, putting their points from their point of view for their benefits. And that may not be a reality. So, you'll find the youth is really getting influenced by all these aspects. So what you think about this, ma'am? Thank you. Thank you very much. Otherwise, your presentation was excellent.
Thank you so much for these questions. Very, very insightful questions. I'll begin with the first question as far as the time management. I could certainly speak from experience being an athlete at the university level, as well as driving as far as for academics. I had one degree, I minored in leadership. And I think what was so important was, as I do look back, it was very limited time. However, if it was even, say, an event, like a one-time event for a panel discussion, where perhaps maybe you bring in alumni, and a lot of alumni enjoy helping those younger generations. And so cost, like I said, that can maybe alleviate cost as well. But where you have a simple event where they're telling their story, they provide their job description, they provide what are maybe some challenges they did not know going into it. But even through this storytelling, as they do share their stories and their experiences within a career, a specific career path, it opens up the minds to the students. So for example, being in sport, at points of my life, I thought all there was coaching. And then I was introduced to the fact that there's a whole other realm within academia to study sport management at a PhD level. And of course, taking that deep dive. I did not know that, to be quite frank, until I spoke and I had a conversation with a professor. And so I really do think it's important that the student develops that sense of confidence to have those professional conversations, even if it's 5-10 minutes. So it's not about necessarily adding something into their schedule to not be able to allow them their social life, the academic life, the sport life, if you will. But perhaps it's maybe just one event to open up their eyes to understand what is out there in this world as far as job description in their major. And so I hope that maybe provides some encouragement as far as the opportunities that we could present to these students, to not overwhelm them, but to say, wow, 4 years goes really fast. I want you to be prepared. It's not saying that you know everything within that. Of course, you're so young, you have so much to learn, but it is saying, I'm here to prepare you, to expand your knowledge. And so for that second question with critical thinking, I think another point I really do want to make is the importance of emotional regulation. That as we move forward with driving critical thinking at the forefront with heavy, heavy tech now in play, we all know if you utilize ChatGPT, you could put any question in there and you could get a response. But it's being discerning of that information. Those are the skills that we need to start teaching students, how to ask the right questions. You know, and that comes from that lifelong learning, that even after you leave the class, that you're still asking questions, maybe within a certain topic area, if you will, that you're interested in, but we have laid a solid foundation for critical thinking. Why I mention emotional regulation. How do we, it comes from both perspectives, but how do you react when someone maybe challenges your thought process? Someone challenges your perspective. How do you react? And these are the skills that are becoming more and more valuable, because if we are calm under pressure, as we know, that creates for a strong leader moving forward. And so it really does, it comes down to teaching how we do critically think. What is critical thinking, right? What is emotional regulation? But as you speak about various outlets, whether it's television, whether it's social media, quick snippets of information, I think allowing them or teaching them about being discerning, about understanding that not everything that you see out there is real. It is not always true, but to ask questions. And I think that's important. It's not saying that the information out there that we see sometimes is not relevant, is actually, it's true and it's insightful, but it's allowing them to take that further step. I tell people, regardless of titles, regardless of what I even have told you today, do your own research. You know, take it into your own account to take that time and that effort. And I think that's another critical thing it's been on the forefront of my mind, is how quick and instantaneous we expect success almost today, including myself. But we have to take the time. We have to take the time to know somebody, to really know somebody. We have to take the time to understand a situation, all aspects of that situation, before we draw conclusive findings. And so if we teach students these skills, that when they do approach the real world, as far as social media, as far as listening to news outlets, they know how to think through something and to maybe go past that news outlet, that post that they saw on social media. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for a wonderful explanation. And I think the learning process starts soon after our birth, and I think we learn our language because of listening carefully, and we were listening your lecture carefully, no doubt. And with this, I think if the youth can develop this kind of skills, you know, we can get a good youth and strong youth, and not the fragile one, because nowadays I've seen, you know, the breaks very easily, and they are turning to some other maybe depressions or suicidal tendencies are there with the youth. So I think, you know, one has to fight, one has to sacrifice, one has to learn, and one has to incite, you know, what we are going through. And I think that will make that person strong, and that will be a real beyond class learning, what I feel. Thank you very much for your wonderful explanation, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to add, it's something very small, but even as a professor, when I'm in the classroom and I'm teaching specifically more in that entrepreneurship sport emphasis, I start out the class with, even if it is a motivational quote, or here's the or, I allow them into my own life as far as the failures or perceived failures I have had, the mistakes, and I educate them on what I wish I would have done. And so it allows for that connection, because when I was younger, I did not go up to my professors. I did not ask them questions. I was more shy and more reserved, and I did regret that. And so by sharing our mistakes in a more safe spot, that you don't always have to share your mistakes online to be authentic, but to allow for others into your life at your own personal, level, but that you are creating that or breaking down that wall of, we are human. We all make mistakes. Even your professor. So it humanizes everything. So thank you.
Only human beings are making mistakes, nothing. The nature,
that's right.
And every time nature forgives us, for our mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very good evening, ma'am.
Yes.
Just have one question with you. It was a wonderful session, undoubtedly. Everything was going in the right direction. But as far as we were concerned, it means the 50 years back, as we are running in our 50s, the core foundation in our classrooms were live well, think clearly, and act responsibly. But nowadays we have changed everything, and now what we are teaching them is the wisdom, values, and resilience. What do you think, what the primary or the core foundation should be in the classrooms? Whether we have to teach the parents about the parenting methods first, or we have to tell the life skills to our children first? What is your opinion about it? What we have to do, or what step we have to take primarily?
No, excellent question. As I reflect, as far as implementing, say, assignments to really help, I like how you mentioned education on resilience, and how resilience is really going to help that individual, not only in the education system as they forge forward into more difficult classes, of course, but in their life. I think something that's important when we talk about different generations, different values, perspectives, even, something that comes to mind, at least at a university level, what would be a good assignment is allowing for the student the way that they could understand resilience, the way that they could understand different perspectives of even learning, is to interview different individuals from different generations. And so when you talk about like understanding values, understanding resilience, I think it really puts into perspective when you sit down with another individual in person, you communicate effectively with them, you empathize. These are how we're learning and applying these skills that I was speaking about. I have empathy for what you do know, what you do not know. In respect, I hope that you have the empathy to understand where I'm coming from. So the generations that are coming up right now with heavy tech use at a very young age, that is a strength for them. Whereas even myself, for example, as a millennial, I did not gravitate to social media right away at all. I'm very different, quite frankly, with my generation. I do have social media for my business, but on a personal level, not so much. So I say this because when you allow a student to maybe have that interview or to assign an interview with an individual from a different generation, perhaps they could learn those effective communication skills. They could learn what it's like to look somebody in the eye and to empathize with their strengths, with their weaknesses. And so that's where I see the application part, as far as understanding, how do you teach resilience? So I hope that answers your question, and I could certainly go in another direction if that's needed.
Perfectly okay, ma'am. You answered very well. But the question is basically, before teaching the life skill or these kind of curriculum or these kind of skills, isn't it important to go with the parents and tell them the adequate methods of parenting? What's your opinion?
Excellent. Okay. Yes, I better understand the question. Thank you. Thank you for saying it again. First, I do want to disclose, as far as I am not a parent, my husband and I do not have kids, but my first thought process comes from what we are teaching, like within the education system. We are not teaching what to think, but actually how to think, how to face challenges, how to overcome challenges in life. How do we look at, say, a situation and someone who has formed their own opinion? How did they come to that opinion? And so I think it's not even a matter of checking in necessarily with that parent, but these are the broader, more larger concepts, if you will, that will without a doubt help the child, the adolescent, whatever age range we're talking about, if we're talking about even at the university level. But these are critical skills that will allow them to effectively accomplish their goals in life. And so they're not necessarily, like I said, of telling the student what to think. That yes, parents are becoming more like they're scrutinizing what is actually being taught in education systems. And rightfully so. I understand that perspective. Even the value of education, it's costly. And so they want to know what the student's learning. But I believe when you focus from a professor standpoint of I'm educating the student on how to think, that when you hear something right away or your friend told you, take time to do additional research, because that's going to benefit, quite frankly, everyone. And maybe even at large in society, how we view each other's opinion, how we interact with others who may in fact disagree with us. How did we form our opinion? Is it from research or is it from hearsay? So I hope that it answers your question. I think it's more about like how we're teaching to think, not necessarily that we would have to check in with the parents on that. But yes, if it was what we're teaching, they may be a little bit more critical of what their child is learning in the education system.
Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supriti Madam. For our speaker, I should introduce her that she is also award-winning teacher, having great experience in this field and having so many experiences of delivering talks, and the very effectively she have participating and discussing with our speaker, and she also delivered so many speeches. Thank you, ma'am. And Dr. Swanam Shukla sir, who just communicated with you, he is also from medical field, professional doctor and professor of medical field, and he's having great experience in NSS and the other works of the academic work, so that every day they discuss with our speaker and we get new insights and we get new points through their discussions. Thank you, both of you. Now, anyone want to add few things? Priti Kumari, do you want to discuss?
Good morning, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Actually, it's good night, probably.
Very fruitful session today.
Thank you.
And my question is how social media disrupt a student's lifestyle nowadays?
How is social media disrupting the students' life?
Lifestyle?
Oh, lifestyle. Okay, excellent question. I believe and I don't speak from any type of psychological perspective because I do not have a background in psychology when it comes to social media and the effects it does have. But I believe when I view just from lived experience, if you will, social media, as far as personal accounts, what I could see happening is the comparison, the social comparison, and as you mentioned, lifestyle. So this, some of which is unrealistic, that if I'm comparing myself to another family or another individual that maybe we don't travel a lot and someone else does, and how that could potentially affect one's mental health. As far as even lifestyle, what clothes are young girls wearing, and how do I size up to that if I'm a young girl? And so I do believe, without even my own experience of not growing up with social media, I do see at least the effects it could have from obviously a woman, but as far as if I was a young girl, how that could have maybe changed my perception growing up. So when you ask specifically about lifestyle from my own perspective, lived experience, I do see how we have to educate on that sense of perfectionism and how there's just, that's not always real. That's not always real in the case of how you are comparing yourself to someone else, and that you find that sense of deep fulfillment in life and that sense of meaning. I mean, this even actually does come out of a Harvard study that has been going on for over 80 years. It's a human adult development study, but the strongest predictors of health, happiness, and longevity was not money, success, status. It was the quality of our relationships. And so educating youth, educating adolescents to drop that sense of consistent and persistent social comparison. My lifestyle's better than yours, that type of mentality. If we could at least educate them on what you may see is not realistic, or it's not necessarily something to judge upon, that these individuals go on vacation as much as they, perceive, or so forth, and that you have to compare your life to that. So I really do think it's about spending time with the child to educate them. I know my father, while I did not have social media growing up, the presence of a parent is so incredibly powerful. It's becoming more and more valuable, in my own personal opinion, with social media, with distractions, noise, everything else. When the parent is present and caring about the son or daughter, it makes a world of a difference in how they their lives could pan out.
I think, ma'am, social media is not very bad, but parents have to control their child. I think so. Parents have to use of social media. I think so.
Absolutely. And another thing, I just want to follow up with that. When I created Plenty of Positivity, which is, like I said, more in the realm of social entrepreneurship, my mindset was exactly kind of where you're speaking about, is utilizing social media as a positive catalyst, pushing like that education, that lifelong learning that is only going to benefit you. Having guests on a podcast that inspire, that encourage, that allow one to actually reflect on their own life, to say, wow, if they have overcome these challenges, maybe I can. I'm going to pursue that goal that maybe has been dormant inside of me for quite some time. And so there are ways of which I think social media has pros, and I think it does have cons. That's been proven even in research. But we could also come up with innovative and creative ways that we're utilizing social media for a positive catalyst. Quite frankly, I met Dr. BETKAR through Dr. Barbara Vokatis, which I'm so incredibly grateful for, that literally led me to this opportunity. Chances are, if I was not on LinkedIn, I don't know if this would have happened. So I think we could utilize social media as a positive catalyst to educate students and to understand that it can be a positive mechanism, if you will, in their life. And it does not have to be negative with constant social comparison, but that you utilize it in a business capacity, not personal, but a business capacity.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent question.
Thank you, Dr. Priti Kumari. He's also a great teacher, doing so many efforts for the students to develop and joining here also daily and raising questions and discussing with other speaker. She's very curious about the topics and the discussion points every day. So thank you to you, Dr. Priti Kumari, madam. It's a great thing that because of LinkedIn we are here. Otherwise, you will not be the speaker, as you have said. Just thank you to that platform there where we can request speakers and we get the renowned speakers from the globe. In future also, you can support us by referring few speakers from your side, as you are also one of the groups of our friends. So that's why we have requested you and you accepted. Being a best teacher, you shared your experiences for the students. You did and doing so many works for the women in your platform and the activities. So we wish all the best for your future plans. And in future also you will be here on new topic as a academic family member. You will be invited again. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Dr. BETKAR, I just want to genuinely thank you for this opportunity. As I mentioned, this is without a doubt, I'm very, very passionate about this topic, and for allowing me this platform to speak about this, especially as we prepare students for life after the classroom in such a heavily tech-filled different industries, like I said, different sectors, but how technology really does, how it's infiltrating all these industries, how we prepare them to excel. So not only to allow them to do good in their industry, but to actually excel in it. And so I'm forever grateful for this opportunity to speak and to invite questions in. So thank you so much.
Thank you and good day to you.
Thank you.
I'm thankful
Bye.
to all those who have joined here.
Thank you. Thank
from
you so
your
much.
side. Thank you to all joined members. Today it was late, but you also joined energetically. Thank you for your support always. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Wonderful session.